Welcome back to Buddy Buddy. I'm Andrew Guy. I'm here today with my long friend, Austin McCallum. Austin, thank you for being here with me today.
Good to be here, man.
Yeah. I don't know if you know much about what I'm trying to do with this podcast, but it's just my effort to rebuild my community and to build friendships. And the whole point of the podcast is for anybody that listens to be encouraged to seek good friendships in their own lives, because we'll get into it a little bit later on, but having solid friendships as an adult is extremely hard and it takes making sacrifice. And so this is me making my sacrifice. Say I'll block out 30-40 minute slots with a friend and say, hey, let's just catch up on life and get somebody's perspective on friendship and community.
For sure, man. Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. Whenever you told me that you were doing this, I was like, okay, this is like a really cool, I guess it's like a really cool way to sacrifice. And like, I think it's something cool to do to let other people in on like how to organically build relationships. Because it's not like a super doctored up podcast, but it's just like something that you're like, I'm going to meet up with people that I already do this with. And then just let other people see how it goes.
Yep, exactly. That's cool. The whole point is people that I already have friendships with. For the most part, I will eventually have people on here that I probably don't know very well. And so it'll be a lot more get to know you based than perspectives on life, because I know a lot about your story. And so we don't have to talk about a ton of that unless you can bring up whatever you want in answering questions. But I don't have to go into too much about like where you grew up and all that stuff, because I know that. But we met all the way back in 2016. Yeah. Crazy to think it's been 7 years.
I know, dude.
Time flies.
Yep.
Time flies. Back at the good old North Greenville University.
Yep.
Through a game that we still play.
Yeah.
In Ultimate Frisbee.
Yep.
But
played last night.
How'd that go? You sky anybody?
To nobody's surprise, I lost my temper with this guy, and it was not cool. For the longest time I thought I was past it, and I wasn't. I'm not past it. So, but we're growing.
Yep. I'm glad you brought up your temper already, because from the jump, I wasn't super fond of you. Yeah. In our beginning days in 2016.
Yeah, that's a trend. That's a trend of people that I know.
Well, at least from friends that you met, I would say back in that season of life.
Yeah.
Because obviously God did a work in your life since then.
No doubt.
But that's for sure. But I was kind of in a way, not forced, but I wanted to play Frisbee for the club team at school. And you kind of forced your way into living with Caleb and the guys in their house. Wasn't your designated dorm room, but you decided to live in their living room for the whole year.
Yeah, I was squatting. For sure.
Because you didn't want to live with the people that you were living with.
Yeah. No shade to them. I really don't know them. If they ever saw this, I'm sure they're nice people. I never knew them from the start. I was just like, these guys are cool, so I'm going to stay over there.
You just squatted with Caleb and them.
Yeah.
But I just remember early on, I was kind of off-putting. I definitely kept my distance because I was like, man, like I don't know if I want, like I'm going to be around this person regardless, but I don't know how deep of a friendship this will actually get.
Right.
And I was like, he will be technically my friend. He'll be my acquaintance because I'll be playing Frisbee with him all year.
Yep.
He lives with one of my best friends. I was like, I'll be around you forever for the whole year. But early on, I don't know, you told me this story and I don't remember it at all. But supposedly like early on in that time, you were in need of a towel.
Yeah.
And I have no clue how this story went, but you pretty much just told me I brought you a towel.
Yeah. Well, you didn't live there and you live kind of a walk away and then not on the first floor of your building, right?
Second floor.
Second floor. Yeah. And so I was at this house that I didn't live at, but I was living at. And maybe after practice, I was like, dude, I just need a shower or something. And I was like, can I borrow somebody's towel? And like the guys that live there, none of them even let me borrow their towel or a towel. And you were like, bro, don't worry, I got you. And like ran all the way up to your dorm and ran back. And I was like, you know what? I feel like this guy's going to be someone I want to be friends with. That's just like a really kind thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
To be honest, I don't remember it at all. You told me that a couple years ago, like when we were hanging out. You're like, you remember that time you brought me a towel?
It's the little things, man.
And I was like, I mean, I guess that was just me trying to make an intentional effort to start a friendship. But
Probably.
I was like, man, I honestly had no like motive in mind behind it because I don't even. Obviously, I didn't because I don't even remember it.
Right.
If I had a motive behind getting you a towel, I would have remembered it. It would have been a story that I would remember. I feel like I have a pretty good memory. But so obviously, our friendship grew at North Greenville. That's pretty much where the whole foundation starts.
Yeah.
What is like a couple of, we can go back and forth, some stories that you feel like were like crucial in the beginnings of our friendship?
Yeah, man. I mean, I know we were just talking about this before we started, but like, I think we ended up bonding over just like various like worship music or like going on, maybe, I don't know if you call them like adventures, but like just like going on some like short trips.
Yeah.
Up to Charlotte. Like we went to like a couple Elevation concerts, right? Did we go to two?
Yeah, we had the actual concert. We went to like one of the, I think, launch parties like after the album release, and then we actually went to one of the live recordings too.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
one of the other albums.
That's right. Yeah. So those were like dope, and then obviously like I'm married now, and then you were friends with Sarah before I was married to her, and she always spoke really highly of you. And by that time, we were pretty good friends already. But yeah, I think like going on some trips together, I don't know, you hop in a car with somebody for a couple hours, and like you end up ironing things out.
For sure.
And then yeah, I guess just like playing frisbee. I think as I got to know you, you were, especially at the time, like you were morally pretty different than me for sure, but even most of the other people there, where you weren't like, you didn't cuss, you were never gonna drink. I don't know, like you thought really hard about the things that you wanted to partake in, the things that you didn't, and even if they weren't inherently sin, you were like, well, is it going to add anything to my life?
Yeah.
And at the time I was 18, and I wasn't thinking as much about that. And so I just knew I respected that about you.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty easy for me to want to be friends with people that I respect a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think one thing early on that I feel was, I don't think it was an effort of us to build our friendship, but I think it was something that it turned into that it was more so for the sake of our health and wanting us to play better frisbee because our team could not win a tournament.
Sure.
We decided to go no soda for a year.
Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah, dude.
Well, initially we said we were going to go a month.
Yeah.
We weren't feeling going no soda for a full year.
Yeah.
But we were just doing it so that we could be hydrated more. Yeah. And feel better, not cramp while we go play frisbee.
I'm never hydrated.
I mean, I feel like I'm not either. But we knew that soda was free reign in the cafeteria, so like we were abusing it, and we knew that our bodies felt like crap when we got to Saturday, Sunday, wherever we were playing. And so we decided to go no soda for a year, and I felt like that little bit of accountability was like at least some sort of a stepping stone to say like, all right, I can trust him. Like he's not gonna like lie to my face and say, yeah, bro, I'm still doing it, and then like get ready drinking Cheerwine in the cafeteria.
That's true.
But that was one of the things that I felt like was like super cool. It's like very minuscule accountability. It's like obviously we're not checking each other on sin, but it's like, hey, bro, you drank a soda today, and I know we got to the point where we're right of the year, and I decided to keep going.
Yeah, you went for multiple years.
I think I went like 3. Yeah, 3-ish. 3 years.
Yeah, I did not.
Yeah, and you told me you were going to break it with a glass bottle Coke, which I don't know if you ended up fulfilling that, but
I did. I think I did at least. I think I went to the Mass General Store downtown Greenville.
Mass General Store. Yeah. That's the place for sure.
That's the spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Another memory that I remember from our days is I invited you to Passion. And I feel like spending the whole weekend with you at Passion was like pretty huge.
Yeah, it was for sure. I remember that.
Because I feel you can't really get away from everybody when you're at North Greenville. Like everybody wants to be a part of everything that we do. Like whether we were going to cook out to get food, whether we were like going to Walmart just to get basic necessities. Right. Everybody felt like they had to be a part or they felt left out. And so you pretty much you would invite until the car was full. Right. Until once the car was full, then you were like, you dip.
Yeah. Or add another car.
Or add another car. Yeah. If more than 5 people wanted to go, you would add another car. But having a whole weekend with you, obviously it was centered around Jesus and like growing our relationship with Jesus and worshiping with thousands of people. But spending a whole weekend with you, it definitely got to see your heart a little more. Yeah. And I feel like it definitely bonded us in a deeper way than just hanging out at the geese house.
Yeah, man, that was super fun. And it was like, because we did like a little small group after we got back from the sessions, and so it was cool to like, because I went with you and people that you went to church with, and so it was just cool to like essentially like watch you do ministry with the people that you go to church with. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you gave me a shout out on Instagram after that trip.
Yeah, had to, bro.
Had to.
If somebody drops you a free ticket to Passion, you gotta shout them out publicly.
For sure, for sure. And then I remember towards the end of our time at college, or I guess my time, because I graduated before you.
Yeah.
Whatever, it was my last semester. I pretty much had like 2 classes, and so I had Fridays free. And we decided we were going to, whenever we could, we would go and we would go get coffee, and we'd pick like a hole in the wall place to go get lunch.
Yeah, dude.
And those, I feel like those were some of like the deepest conversations we've had.
Yeah.
Because like, we would sit down and it was like, no, we're going to talk life, like things going on in the world, what's going on with us, over Duke sandwiches.
Yeah, dude.
If it ain't Duke's, it ain't mayonnaise.
That's right. That's so funny. Yeah, I remember that now. Like we like drove out away from school to like go to some strange places.
Yep.
And some like weird coffee shops. Yeah.
Yep. I remember we got pho one time.
Yeah, dude, I love pho.
I definitely sacrifice you for that. It's not my favorite.
No,
I
could tell. But it's so good.
But yeah, looking back at North Greenville, if I can learn how to edit, I'm gonna put this picture in there because I'm pretty sure this picture was the night that you met your wife.
Okay.
And I don't know if I introduced y'all because he said I was friends with Sarah before.
Oh, you definitely did. I always tell the story.
I'm pretty sure this is from the night that you met Sarah. And so,
I saw it.
I saw it.
Yeah.
If I can get it up there, I'll put it up there of our baby faces.
Yeah, dude.
But so yeah, you are now a married man.
I am. Just had 1 year.
Yeah.
Last week.
Your 1 year anniversary was last week.
Yeah.
It's crazy, bro.
Yeah, dude.
I got a lot of friends right now that are like right near their 1 year, so I don't remember everybody's 1 year.
I don't expect people to remember.
Yeah, but that's awesome, man.
It was weird, dude. It was like we sat down at dinner, and I was sitting across from her, and I was like, it's been a really cool year. Like, it's been great. And then I was telling her, I was like, Lord willing, I was like, there'll be some time where we sit down on this day and we're going to be like, I'm so happy our kids are doing well. Like, we're looking towards retirement. Like, we probably won't even be in this house that we just bought. Like, we'll be in some different house. And I was just like, man, that, like, what a crazy thought. Like, to just, like, commit to doing life with one person for so long. And it's like, I was teaching a couple weeks ago in Spartanburg, and they were laughing at this, and so I'll mention it. But I like got up there, and I always share like fun facts about me, and I was like, yeah, I'm about to celebrate my 1 year anniversary. And I was like, the big one. And people were laughing. I was like, you can't get them all if you don't get the first.
That's fair.
But I was like,
can't get to 50. Everybody looks towards 50.
I was like, I'm really thinking about that, though. Yeah. I was like, man, I want to get to however many I live for. And the first has to be good if you're setting up for all that. So
that's fair.
But yeah, it's been pretty sick.
That's awesome. So in this whole point of the podcast was about community and relationships and building that. How do you feel like you and Sarah's relationship has grown, and what have you learned about yourself in your first year of marriage since you just got to your 1 year?
Yeah, dude, I feel like it's so much stuff. So I feel like over the course of our relationship, so I think you introduced us would be spring 2017.
Yep.
We started dating winter 2018. And so honestly, we did a lot of the hard work prior to getting married, or at least the hard work so far. I'm sure there's more to come. But a lot of it was just like, you need to communicate expectations in relationships. And honestly, one of the things I learned from my marriage that has bettered my friendships is that you carry more expectations than you think you do. So it would seem like when you're friends with some other dude, you're like, yeah, we just hang out when we hang out. Or some people would feel that way. But then other people would be like, bro, it's been like a week and a half, and you haven't hit me up, and I'm kind of feeling like, like something's up. Or like, depending on the way that you text, like I have this weird thing about me where I don't like if Sarah doesn't like spell out "I love you."
Mm.
Like if she goes like, the worst thing to me is if she goes like LUV space U, no I, no spelling any of the words out.
Yeah.
I'm like, she must hate me. She doesn't love me. She's obviously pissed at me.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. It's just like an expectation I have. Or another thing is like in our relationship, we always kiss goodnight. I'm like, I told her at the beginning, I was like, I don't care how angry we are. Like, if we kiss goodnight, I know we're gonna make it.
I like that.
And I got that from my parents, but it's one of those things that like I had to communicate an expectation because I don't think she actually cared. She's like, I'll just go to bed.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I get. And so I'm not like blaming her for not wanting that, but communicating those things and like explaining what they mean to you, I think that's essential in a marriage and really beneficial in a friendship.
Yeah, for sure. I love that because I don't definitely haven't told you. I officially have a girlfriend now,
Dude.
and
Yes.
yeah, I haven't told you that, and so I like hearing stuff like this.
Congrats.
And here, obviously, I'm nowhere near marriage, but I like hearing stuff like that about communicating expectations in ways that better relationships.
Yeah.
Just for my own sake, now that I'm dating somebody.
Yeah.
But
have you read I don't know why you would have, but people read it when they're dating people, but The Meaning of Marriage by Tim Keller?
I have not.
Dude, R.I.P. Tim Keller first. But he talks about how he grew up in this like super traditional home where his dad didn't do like his dad worked and his mom did like everything around the house. And then he just talks about how him and his wife, I wish I knew her name. I feel like it's Kathy, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Whenever they got married, he just assumed like I'm not gonna do any of the work around the house. And then she like kind of held it in, and then it became like I think he said like their first big argument was because like he expected marriage to be one way, she expected it to be a different way, and they never talked about it.
I love that. I'll definitely have to read that book.
It's solid.
But looking back on your wedding day, because obviously our boy Caleb, his wife, posted some like flashback photos the other day on Instagram.
Oh yeah, I'm not even on Instagram.
But it's okay. I saw it. She posted some pictures from y'all's wedding day. The guy that officiated your wedding.
Yeah, goated.
That man Ed.
Yeah.
Bro, tell me a little bit about Ed.
Yeah.
And I want to know like what he means to you, because obviously he means the world to you. But how has his friendship / mentorship like shaped you, and how like shaped you into the man that you are today?
Yeah, man, so much of who I am I owe to Ed and like a few other like older guys that have poured into me. Ed to me initially was my youth pastor when I was in high school mostly. And now we've just been friends. We've just been like, he's been my mentor, I've been his mentee, and like I don't have a problem taking that like submissive role just because he's actually poured so much into me that I feel like describing it just as friends would be the misnomer.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then other than that, dude, I mean, he's just someone that allowed me to be a part of his life and watch him just do the things that he does as he is a husband, as he's a leader of a home, as he's a father, as he was a pastor, and just watch him and try to learn from him. And like, sometimes I wonder how much of it was intentional, and sometimes I'll ask him, but so much of it was like, it was intentional for him to bring me along, and everything else, he was like, you can observe and ask questions about as much as you want, and I'll always be open.
Yeah.
And so he was really like, instead of me having to be super intentional about teaching you every little thing, I'll put the onus on you, and you can learn as much as you're ready to learn.
I love that.
Yeah, which now I think, like, because now I'm a youth pastor, I'm part of his coaching tree. But now I'm like, yeah, I think that's the way to go. It's like, because if he would have tried to tell me everything, there's so much that I would have missed. But him allowing me to wait until I was actually curious enough to ask, like, benefited me a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a huge way to do mentorship and like being a mentee or being somebody that you're like helping disciple is like, there's going to be things that I if I'm mentoring somebody, I'm not going to think I got to teach them this. I need to show them this. I need to show them this.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be things that I forget, and so they're going to miss out on that. And so it kind of helps like to bridge the gap. If say like, bro, I'm going to teach you as much as I like can think, but I also want to put the ownership back on you and say, ask me any questions, ask what you want to know, because if you don't ask me, I might not even think to teach you those things.
Right.
And so that's cool that Ed did that with you, and it's like, nah, free game. Ask me what you will. Like I'm an open book. I'll teach you what I know, and so that's super cool. I just know he had a huge, he holds a huge importance in your life, and I want anybody that listens to this, to know that like having somebody that's a little bit more mature than you, that's like not out of reach, but like somebody that you feel comfortable enough that you know is far more mature than you,
right,
that you are comfortable enough to ask questions to, is huge.
Yeah.
And whatever you're doing in life, whether if it's just you're in a job and you're trying to get to their job, or if it's like your walk with Christ and you're like, bro, to me, you're like the closest spitting image to Jesus. Like, I want to be like you, because obviously you're closer to Jesus than I am. And so, yeah, you got to have people like that in your life.
Yeah, dude. I think as you talk about community, it's like super smart to bring up mentors. I also think it's really smart to bring up mentees. And I think we've talked about this idea before, but like having essentially like 3 generations of friends, like having someone from the generation before you that's a little bit further along than you, a little bit wiser than you, has experienced more than you have. Having someone like that that's pouring into you and is like approachable and accessible, someone that you can ask questions to and they'll be honest with you. Then having just peers, like people that you're like, man, I'm going through this, and they're like, I'm going through this too, because you're at the same stage of life. And so that gets a little bit more sticky as you like graduate college, because then people your same age are not always at the same stage of life. Like obviously you were like homeowner stage 4 years before any of our friends were. And that comes with a lot of different things and like a lot of different stresses that we had no ability to understand, because we just hadn't been there before and didn't know anything about the process. But so someone that's gone before you, people that are at the same place in you, and then I think a key is like someone under you. And like, I don't mean under as importance, like obviously they're just as valuable, but I just mean under of like, now you are in the position of you're a little bit further along than them. You've lived a little bit more life than them. And really, like, as much as it will benefit them to learn from you, it will benefit you to be teaching them. Because as you try to teach them, you'll be reinforcing principles that you're still trying to grasp. And they hold you accountable. Like, for you to have someone that you're like, I don't want to let you down, is like really key.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely, you get to experience that firsthand being a youth pastor. Like, I serve with the students at my church, and so I get a little bit, I don't have as much of a responsibility role as you, obviously, but I at least have that same mindset of, I'm going to pour into you. I'm going to make an intentional effort to show you that, yeah, I'm a little bit farther along in life, but I'm not too far out of grasp, so you can't just like come to me. And that's one thing. 'Cause I remember growing up, and we felt this a little bit, like we've talked about this when we were in college, like when you talked about how my morals and values were like so different than people that you were at. I struggled at an early age because people thought that I was like too good, in a sense where they had no comfortability come to me because they felt like I didn't understand their struggles. And I feel like that's something that I've had to learn, of like being even more vulnerable, even more open to even the most minuscule things that I struggle with, just so that they understand that I'm not perfect. And because I know that like I might not have struggled with the same things that they have struggled with. I might not be going through the same life struggles, like family stuff that they've gone through. And so I have to find other ways to mend the gap, to say like, no, you can still, like, I'm still here for you. I still can sympathize with what you're going through. I just might not have gone through it.
For sure.
But so now you're working full time. Well, first, I guess that kind of goes back. I know you're going in youth ministry. Was North Greenville like the only choice when you decided to study youth ministry?
So because of Ed, pretty much whenever I started following Jesus, I was like 17 years old. And the way that following Jesus had been described to me was just like, love God and love his people. And by loving his people, you'll be loving him. And I was like, okay, well, if that's all I'm supposed to do with my whole life, I guess I should go into ministry because I would like to do that and get paid for it.
Fair enough. Fair
And
enough.
but I didn't know anything about like Christian colleges. Like I had never even heard of them. I knew that like some Ivy League schools like used to have like these like really big theology departments, and some of them still do. Um, but I went to a college fair. It had like 200 colleges there, but at the time I didn't own a laptop, and the only college that had a paper application was North Greenville. I'd never heard of North Greenville, never been there, never heard of Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't show up to a college fair and not apply to any colleges. So
fair enough.
Filled it out. I applied to like 11 colleges, like online later. Got accepted to all of them. And then like as I prayed and whatnot, it just seemed like God wanted me to go there. And honestly, I would not be doing what I do now if I didn't go there. I think at the time I didn't realize how severe my biblical illiteracy was. Like I just read the Bible on the most surface level and like emotional level, and I had no idea what the context was. I didn't understand that it was like 66 books written across thousands of years by a bunch of different authors and like something like 12 to 15-ish different genres. And I didn't know what that meant for how I was supposed to read or how I was supposed to apply it to my life. And so although it was the only college that I had to pay money to go to, I'm pretty happy that God like directed me in that place. And then obviously for all the relationships I made there.
Yep. For my life, obviously, I did not use my degree, and I'm still in the career search role. But friendships like yours and other people that will eventually be on this podcast is like some of the biggest blessings that have come from North Greenville.
Yeah.
Outside of just like fun memories, I mean, I did learn some things. I feel like communication has come from the education classes that I took, but a lot of it was friendships for me. But so now you work full time as a student pastor at Summit. Tell me a little bit about your church or your ministry and your role there.
Yeah, man. My role is like a little weird, or at least different than I would say the normal student pastor. So we have 4 congregations, one in Simpsonville, one in Spartanburg, one in Easley, and one in Cherrydale, all like in the upstate area, but kind of spread out. And I'm over all the youth ministries for all of those congregations. And so once upon a time, that meant that like every single week I would go to 4 different youth ministries, and they were all the same, and I would teach the same thing and play the same game, but with a different group of students and a different group of adult leaders. Thankfully, it doesn't mean that anymore because that was just not sustainable.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
As crazy as that sounds, I'm such a big proponent of like not overworking in ministry. And I know so many people are like, well, don't you only work on like Sundays and Wednesdays? But rest is just so vital if you want to keep your family healthy.
Yeah, for sure.
And yourself healthy. But now I've hired some other people. Like Summit believes in the next generation enough to like actually put their money where their mouth is and pay people to be able to help like partner with parents to disciple their kids. And so I would say like the big focuses of our student ministry are we want to partner with parents first of all. So like we believe that parents are the primary faith influencers of their children.
Yep.
And that's just like a title and language that we use to say, in reality, it's the parent's responsibility to disciple their child. It's never going to be mine, but I would love to help in any way that I can.
Yeah.
So like you were saying earlier, how you want to be this voice for the students that you volunteer with, that can like speak wisdom, but also someone that's just like a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and really approachable. That's all I'm trying to do. So we really want to partner with families, and then we really want to be like organically relational. Like we just try to hang around these students enough, be there enough, show up to enough things to where they're like, I believe this person's actually in my corner, and when the time comes where I'm curious about something or I'm having doubts or I'm having issues, I know that I can go to them.
Yep. I love that. Yeah, I've always believed that parents are the key to the discipleship of their children. You can never bank on a church or a school to say they're going to be the sole proponent of my child's growth in their spirituality and their growth with Jesus, because the mass amount of time, the most amount of time they're going to have with somebody is their parents,
Right.
and how mom and dad, or if they don't have a unified household, like how the parents act and how they treat their kids is that's their closest realization of how to love people as
Sure.
Jesus would love. And so 2 hours or 3 hours with the youth ministry isn't going to be enough to say they're going to grasp everything that they need to know to be a true follower of Jesus.
Right.
And so I like I said, I agree that parents are like the driving force in discipleship. This is going off the church realm. I asked my dad this the other day, and I just want you can go as deep as you want.
Okay.
But it's not the super deep question, but it could be if you want to answer it. As the Big C church, like church in general, because obviously you're a different church, I'm a different church. My dad's on staff at a different church.
Right.
What do you feel like is a need the church, or what is something the church could do better to be better at building community, whether that's your own church foundation or outreach in the sense of reaching people that don't go to church? What's a way that the church needs to, how can the church build community better?
Yeah. Man, I feel like the onus being on the church is never going to work. I honestly think it has to be more like individuals doing things like this.
That's a great answer.
Just because oftentimes churches put in systems to help encourage people to believe in ideas. So and you can see how far away that is from we actually do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Churches don't normally just make people do things. The job of the church is to equip the saints for the work of the kingdom.
Yep.
And so churches are there to help teach you principles, and even you're congregating with other believers. But if you want to be in legitimate biblical community, if you want to have vulnerability to the max, and so somebody knows you fully, which then gives them the ability to love you fully and accept you fully, that's on you. As a pastor or as someone that works as a part of a church, I don't have the ability to say, look at this person, allow me to reveal all of their deepest parts to you. And then would you accept them now? Would you continue to love them? Would you show up when they need you? That, so much of that is on the individual. And that's not to say that church doesn't have a part in it. I think that over the last few decades, you've seen every church transition to not every church. You've seen a lot of churches transition to some life group, small group, adult community group, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
And that's in an effort because we've figured out something that we will do if we're not told that it's going to be bad for us is we'll just isolate ourselves.
Yep.
We'll stay away from vulnerability because vulnerability is hard. We'll stay away from our neighbors because sometimes our neighbors are weird.
Yep.
And so if we're not encouraged into it, then we probably just won't do it. And so the church has a role in it, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think the huge responsibility lies on the individual.
That's a perfect answer. I think the same way. I think a lot of it is your own soul effort and how you want to see biblical community. Obviously, the church is there for congregational worship. It's good to be around like-minded people, but for the sense of growth and seeing yourself getting more and more like Jesus, and that sanctification process it's not going to come solely from coming to a church on a Sunday.
Right.
It's going to come from being encouraged to go join a small group, or to say, I'm going to sit down with a mentor and sit down with somebody and just be vulnerable, be open, and say, these are the things that I'm going through, these things I struggle with, these are the sins that I feel like they got a hold on me that I can't break.
Right.
And that's where community comes from, because that's when you can truly feel the connection with somebody, because you are doing life with them at that point. You're not just church, is doing life with them, showing up on Sundays doing, but you're not, in a way, you can still be isolated and still sit in a pew or at a chair at a church, because it's still just you and the service. You're not necessarily interacting with people in a full sense. And so I think that's a great answer. It all comes down to the individual. I feel like once you understand your need for community, it's on you. Like the church can't do it for you.
Right. Yeah, I think the church has to help you understand the need.
Yep.
And like I'm saying, like it's not that the church can't play a role in it. Like obviously,
they can.
If you're familiar with your Bible, or if you ever decided to look into it, like if you're reading in Acts, the early church, they're way smaller than the church is now, but they're a really good picture of what a community looks like. Like even the idea of how often they pray together, and the fact that they share so many meals.
Yeah.
Like just the conversation that would exist when you talk to someone across the table, or when you have someone into your home. Like that's going to build community if you're willing to be vulnerable still. But the big C church nowadays is like where we've gone wrong over the way is there's so much disunity, like even down to like the different amount of denominations and whatnot, and just the fact that like I drove to your house today, it took me like 23 minutes to get here, and I probably passed like 30 churches. And like 30 probably isn't an exaggeration.
No,
like
it's not.
Yeah,
it's not an exaggeration.
So like we're not even trying to say like let's do things together. Like I meet with a group of youth pastors from around the area, but there's still probably 100 within like a 20-mile radius that I don't know, if not more. Like so yeah, we haven't done a great job of being unified, and so the community opportunities have become a little bit more strange, because like all of the people in the early church used to live really close to each other. They just decided to stay together, and now obviously like people are further away, and there's like different obstacles, or like you have friends that are like only online, or like you have friends that you only do these things with, or like friends that you only work with. And so it's definitely like it's different, I would say, than it was in Acts. I was just thinking, like, if I was going to argue, like, that it's all on the individual, what would I say?
Yeah.
And I would have said, well, what do you think about Acts? And I would say that the early church in Acts is a really good example of what biblical community can be within the church. But it just looks different now. That's all I'm trying to say.
For sure. And I love that. And so continuing on the community aspect and friendships, outside of, obviously we are seeking like biblical community, but just on a more just friendship level, what are some basic applicable steps people could do to build better friendships in their life?
Yeah. Man, I think that the first one is just start to, if you're not close with anyone, I would say that something that helped me a lot was just trying to figure out, who am I, or who do I want to be? And one of the ways that I started doing that was I just started like just like word vomiting in a journal. Like I'm not a morning person, so like I was going to say I would wake up and start journaling. I would wake up, it was later in the day.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think I'm like some super organized, like get up at like 4:30 or whatever. But like I journal pretty much every day now, but I started when I was like 15. And when I started, I wasn't even a believer. It was just because I had questions of who do I want to be? Like when in 5 years, when I'm 20, or in 10 years, like I turned 25 on Sunday. Like I was just like, what kind of person do I want to be? And what kind of people does that person attract? And so I think whenever I talk to students about building community, a lot of them are like, well, there's no good options around. And I'm like, well, start becoming the person that belongs in the community that you envision.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's just like, if you're like, I want to be around all these like really solid, like honest, like good Christian dudes that whenever they get married, they're faithful husbands. Whenever they become fathers, they're fathers that lead their children in the right way. Well, start becoming that person. Like envision what did that person look like when they were my age, and like figuring out, okay, what are, and then I know that doesn't exactly answer practical steps, but what are the steps that that person would take? Like, what does that person have a vast knowledge of, and how much knowledge of that do you have?
Yeah. It always points back to like my mom always used to be like treat people the way you want to be treated. I was like, well, then it makes you think on that mindset of like, but start becoming who you want to be. Like, like start becoming a person that you would want to be around. If there was multiple of you, like and that's the community you want to be. You got to become that person.
Yeah, for sure.
And so my mom used to always challenge me with that. Like, if you don't like the people you're around, then you got to learn how to love them better so they can see what community looks like. And so, like, I used to always be challenged by my mom with that. She would always pick people in the youth group, be like, that person's alone. Like, go talk to them. And sometimes I would take that and like, why are you asking me to do that?
Yeah,
like,
that's not my job.
That ain't my job. Like, I would look back on the more big C church. I'd be like, my dad's a youth pastor. Tell dad to go talk to him.
Yeah.
I was like, but like, I was the one that was in the schools with them. Like, I was the one like seeing them every day. It should have been my job to be able to make people feel more accepted and loved. But my mom used to challenge me with things like that. And I'm gonna eventually have him on the podcast too. But my high school youth pastor, he was like the first person that, like, outside of my mom and my dad, like, he was the first one that like truly taught me intentionality. And like he gave, like, when I get him on the podcast, I'll talk about some of the things. But he was the first one that challenged me. He's like, bro, like, no, you see him, go, like, go, like, make your effort to say, like, if anything, you in a way might not benefit from their friendship, but you might be the person that they need to like to start their life over, or to like reset their mind to say that I'm loved. And so I was like, and so he was the first one that like really challenged me in that. And so now as adults, like, it's like super hard for us. It's easier to make community in my eyes when you're in school, because it's like you're around people every day.
Yeah, for sure.
And you see them every day in your classes, every day in the cafeteria, every day at the sports you play. And so you have so many opportunities to say, if I don't want to talk to him at lunch, I can talk to him at practice. If I don't talk to him at practice, like, I'll see him tomorrow. But as adults, like me and you, we can go weeks without talking and seeing each other, which happens because we're doing live. Like,
and it could happen, like, easily before you know it's been weeks.
Yeah, before you know it's been weeks. And so we could easily do that. And so that's why I think as adults, it's harder because, like you said, like earlier, just talking about, like, we're so focused on our own lives. And it's not like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just, I got my job, you got your job, you got a wife, I have a girlfriend, I got my family, you got your family. And so it's like we have so many responsibilities on our plate that making time for community is hard. And it's like a really big sacrifice. And so if you want it, you got to make it. Like, you can't like play like the victim, like, dang, I wish I had good friends. Because once you get to the point where you have responsibilities, like, it's on you at that point. Like, yes, you should put yourself in situations to make friends. Things that you like to do that people also like they do. Like, a lot of our friends started from frisbee. Like, literally our whole friend group, for the most part, started from us circling around and throwing frisbees around. Like, friends that we still hold to our heart. Like, we talk to.
Go to all their weddings.
Go to all their weddings. It started from just playing frisbee. And so that's just something that I would encourage you with. Like, why you're trying to figure out who you want to be, like your point of like becoming the person you want to be around. It's like, just get around things that you like, and that could eventually lead to your community, and which has led to mine. So
I mean, I like have never been in the gym, obviously, but like, I see why people in the gym develop such a bond. Because they're all there looking for some form of self-betterment, and usually in the same direction. Like, they're like, if I could get fit, or like, I want to love the way that I look more, or I'm trying to build some confidence through this, or I want to know that I can do something hard for a long time. Like, I want to know that I'm able to withstand the pressure of these things. Or they're like, I'm trying to relieve some stress. Like, I have all of these outward pressures, and here is my outlet. And so I think whenever all of those people like get together in the same place, they're like, oh, you know what? Although the rest of your life outside of this gym is way different than mine, we're not that different after all. And so they're able to bond over those things. And then you got gym bros and gym gals. I don't know what they call the girls.
I don't know what the girls call themselves, but gym bros are a real thing. For sure. But well, dude, thank you for coming and sitting with me.
No doubt.
I feel like this conversation was beneficial not only for our friendship, but anybody that was to listen to this. And I just want to tell you that I love you.
Love you too, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.